The Minmatar Republic Hurricane is probably my favourite ship in the entirety of the EVE universe. I mean, look at it. It looks incredible. It's powerful, it's versatile, and it uses my favourite weapon system, projectile turrets, because who doesn't love catapulting 20,000 kilograms of hot metal into the side of your opponent's ships? And why should I use capacitor for my weapon systems, right? That stuff's for running the afterburners. Anyway, the Hurricane also has a lot of personal history to me as well, and anyone who's watched this channel for long enough is pretty familiar with the name Silent Rose. When I set up my new EVE Online character, I actually sent across the OG Silent Rose hull, and I now have the skills and capabilities to run this effectively, so it was time to take it on its maiden voyage. Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie, and in today's video we're going to be undocking the Hurricane and talking about how I personally fly this absolute unit of a ship. Before we go too far, I think it's worth just spending a brief moment to talk about the skills as I've got them set up, because they're not exactly where I want them to be right now, but I think they're good enough to run a ship like this, and this is kind of the level that I would recommend you get to before undocking your first Hurricane. Now obviously going into Spaceship Command, we're going to need to have trained up Minmatar Frigate 3, Minmatar Destroyer 3, Minmatar Cruiser 3, and into Minmatar Battle Cruiser. I wouldn't even bother undocking this really before getting that at least to level 4, because that is going to give you at least 4 levels worth of the Hurricane's bonuses. Anything less than that and it kind of feels like you should have just stopped at Cruiser and put that up instead, right? Now beyond this as well, obviously you are going to need to have skills in Gunnery. Here I've got Gunnery all the way up to 5, along with things like Motion Prediction, Rapid Firing, Sharpshooter, and Surgical Strike, all at least to level 4, same with Trajectory Analysis. I have got currently Medium Projectile Turret to 4, which means I can't fit the Tech 2 modules yet, but as you can see, that's pretty high in my list. In addition to this, you are going to need to have your power grid fairly high, because artillery takes a lot of power grid. I've got my power grid management up to level 5, and I'm still struggling in certain cases to get the fit exactly how I'd like it. From there, obviously going medium projectile turret 5, and then into the specializations to allow me to use the tier 2 ammo seems a solid idea. You're going to want drone skills fairly high, because the Hurricane can use light drones, and they are surprisingly useful for getting any frigates that just happen to get under your guns. Very nice in certain missions if, yeah, you've just got a few more frigates than you can kill before they get into range. Nothing worse than having some frigates orbiting you super close and your artillery just cannot hit them. You can try and slingshot them, but having the drones there and having those properly skilled up does really help. Now, the Hurricane itself can be shield tanked or armor tanked. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. I am personally a fan of shield tanking. Therefore, I go for shield management, shield operation, and shield upgrades at least to level 3. I think I actually need shield operation to level 4 so that you can get the compensation skills starting to train. I go for a passive fit, which is not something I could do in EVE Echoes, and it is just, to me, the way I really enjoy this ship. So, enough about the skills then, let's move on to the fitting. When fitting any ship, it's important to consider its traits, so let's open those up for the Hurricane. Here you can see we have Minmatar Battle Cruiser giving bonuses per skill level of a 5% increase to medium projectile turret damage and rate of fire. That's attacking the DPS equation from both sides. You're getting more shots in a period of time, and those shots are doing more damage. This just puts this as a straight up damage dealer, and the Hurricane, for that simplicity, oh boy do I love it. We have a roll bonus here as well that allows us to use command burst modules, and it increases their effective range by 50%. I'm not actually using a command burst in this for this one, so we can happily ignore that. And like most of the mainline battlecruiser turret ships, we have a 25% bonus to medium projectile turret optimal range and fall off. That's a standard across the board. You'll see that the others get that for things like hybrid turrets or energy turrets, of course, not projectile, but for the Hurricane, it is of course medium projectile turrets. So what do I go for? Medium projectile turrets, but what type? Well, I'm running 650mm medium scout artillery. I like artillery, and actually I need to apologize for my intro. The intro, I suggested that I would be firing 20,000 kilograms of hot metal into the enemy ships. That's based on a 280mm. That's the small artillery. This is basically triple that, so consider this like 50 to 60,000 kilograms of hot metal puncturing the sides of the enemy's ships, and with that mental image in your head, I'm pretty sure you can understand why I enjoy the Hurricane. Now, you'll see here, currently I've got this fit with phased plasma, but I do carry all options both for fusion and for EMP, because that gives a nice range spread, a nice damage spread across the board. I can do thermal with the phased plasma, I can do electromagnetic with the EMP M, and with the fusion M, I can be doing explosion damage. That's pretty much all I need to worry about. Yes, of course, I could go for something that is heavily into the kinetic damage as well, but all of those do partly kinetic, and most things that are kinetic weakness tend to also be weak to either explosive or kinetic and thermal, at which point the phased plasma or the fusion cover that quite nicely for me. Now, of course, we have 7 high slots, but only 6 of them can be the turrets, although 6 turrets is still pretty awesome. This does leave a utility high slot, and this is kind of up to you how you go with this one. I've got a salvager in it at the moment because this tends to be a sit and park kind of vessel for the most part, with a little bit of kiting if things start getting close. Therefore, I can drop a mobile tractor unit and then just salvage and loot everything after the battle is over. This could be a missile launcher. I know a lot of people who run turrets in these, run a launcher in these, and just get that little bit of extra DPS out of it. For a range fit like this, I've even seen folks put in probe scanner launchers in here, because that would allow you to scan down certain combat sites whilst out in the Hurricane, and honestly, that's a pretty solid option for that utility high slot. For a ranged fit like this, something like a neutralizer or a Nosferatu just doesn't really cut the mustard. You don't need it, right? For the mid slots, because we've got 4 mid slots, I've gone for shield tanking in 3 of those. You'll see I've gone for a Republic Fleet large shield extender in one, and a standard large shield extender one in the other, mainly because I couldn't afford 2 of these. Basically, I want to rack out that CPU and PG as high as possible, so this may end up getting upgraded at some point in the future. I am trying to make my shield as big as possible. I'm not running a shield booster here, so there is no active recovery. I have no module to switch on to repair my shields. Instead, what I do have is down in the low slots, we've got 2 shield power relays. Again, I will be upgrading these once the skills finish training. And in the rig slots, we're running a full brace there of medium core defense field purges. Now, the core defense field purges and the shield power relays, for those who don't know, are essentially modules that increase the passive regen of your shields. Now, shields in EVE Online recharge fairly quickly on their own, but these essentially do that constantly for you. So, I have currently 71 hit points per second of shield regen happening just constantly. That is just going off no matter what I'm doing. I can be capacitor empty and my shield is going to be recharging like that. I do then have a 10 meganewton YS8 compact afterburner. Again, compact here just to help it fit in while I was training up. If you find you end up with a bit of spare power grid later on, you can take this up to a standard 10 meganewton afterburner 2. You could put in even one of the enduring ones here. There's all kinds of different options that you can go for this. There's also an alternative fit, I'll be showcasing it in just a moment, where we can swap this out for a micro warp drive if that's more your thing. For me though, the afterburner does the job admirably. The rest of the low slots then, 2 gyro stabilizer 2s and 2 tracking enhancer 2s. This means that I get a nice big power out of all of my shots, and the tracking enhancers mean that those shots get much more likely to be penetrates and wreckings and things like that. I get good quality shots off against my targets, especially useful for anything that happens to have the slightest bit of transverse velocity, because let's be honest, those 650mm medium scout artilleries don't have the best tracking. Again, I will be looking to upgrade these to 650mm artillery 2s at one point, once those skills do train up. It's like another 12 days or something for me. In the drone bay, I'm currently running 4 Caldari Navy Hornets. Again, you can swap these out for whatever you fancy. I don't even have to be the Navy issues. Genuinely, I scooped up 4 of these Navy issues out of a site when I was mining the other day, so I was just like, well, hell yes, I'll use those. Kinetic damage against the Serpentis rats is better better than the warriors I was previously using. Of course, you can change your drones depending on the type of enemy you're up against. The drone bay can hold 8 small drones, but you can only launch 4 of them at a time with the bandwidth of the Hurricane. So do make sure you have drone trained up to 4 so that you can launch the full flight of 4 light drones. If you want to get the 5, that's really useful because it allows you to go into specializing and getting extra damage and that out of your other drones. Allows you to go into the like the Hornet 2s or the Warrior 2s and stuff like that, but basically base your drones on whatever rats you happen to be going up against. Now, I mentioned that I am also running an alternative fit sometimes on this. Well, if we take out the Gyro Stabilizer 2 and the Afterburner and then open this up, if we go into the proper menu here, that is, and go into my item hanger, I then have a 50 meganewton YT8 compact micro warp drive. Sorry, that threw me off for a second, that power warning, so I'm thinking to myself, why am I getting a power warning? That's because the other item we need for this is a power diagnostic system too. Suddenly, we now have enough power to run all of that there. The power diagnostic system as well also has a nice little side effect in that it increases your shield regen. So in this fit, I actually have 82 HP per second. That's a little bit faster than the 71 we had before. Was it 71 or 70? Let's just offline that. We'll see 71, so it's going up by 11 hit points per second by having this fit, and we are a little bit more burst mobile. We can't really, I need to put this one online as well, oops, just to prove that this does all fit in that power grid. Ultimately, you can't keep this running for long. You've got 1 minute 58 seconds, 1 minute 50 seconds there in absolute perfect situations. That said though, most of the time you're not going to have the micro warp drive on at all. You'll just be running the multi-spectrum shield hardener, at which point you are capacitor stable with that fit as well. And it's the same on the other one, obviously. The Afterburner is capacitor stable. So let's unfit that, and we're going to put the 10 meganewton back in there. And we're going to take the power diagnostic system out when you let me. Oh, wrong one. I always tap those wrong ones there and bring the gyro stabilizer back in. You'll notice this does obviously have more DPS because we've got that second gyro stabilizer, 384, which would otherwise drop down there to a 311. And we also got alpha drops down to 1698, which previously with the gyro stabilizer in would be 1846. So you do lose a bit of damage, but it's nice for that extra bit of survivability if that's what you're looking for. Honestly though, I've been running a few L3 sites in this. I've had no issues with survivability at all. I like that extra bit of damage. It means you're more likely to kill something in 1 or 2 shots rather than 2 or 3 shots, if that makes sense. I just find that helps you clear the sites that little bit faster. But mainly it is that utility high slot that you can change based on what you want to do. I really like this. It's a low maintenance fit. It doesn't require a huge amount of skills to operate, to actually undock it and to use it effectively. It makes decent ISK per hour running level 3 agent sites. I will probably try some other PvE options with it eventually as well, but for the time being it's a nice relaxed ship that I just kind of lock everything, shoot everything, loot everything, and then just go home and hand the mission in. And to be able to fly the Hurricane like that, I just love it. I just love it. The only downside for me in EVE Online is there's no particularly Silent Rosy Hurricane skins. The Silent Rose never used to have a skin when I originally flew it, but then when I started flying it in EVE Echoes, I would go for like the Rose Thorn skins to make it nice and bright purple or pinky colours. That's exactly how I've always wanted it to look. There's no real option for that in EVE Online. There are some amazing looking skills for the Hurricane. I'm not complaining about the overall skills. I'm just saying I kind of wish it had the Heartbreaker or something so I could get a nice vibrant pinky purple skin properly on there, because the Snowline Blade Racer just doesn't do it for me. Anyway, enough talk about the actual ship. Let's undock this and showcase it in action. So immediately on warping into sight, you can see there are quite a few frigates nearby. I do just want to check if that acceleration gate's going to work before I kill those. Nope, they're all nice and close though. I've only got the capability to lock onto 5 targets, but screw it, let's hit everything and just start shooting. And the great thing about the Hurricane is that insane alpha damage. So you'll see here, as soon as I activate, boom, 1 shot, gone. And I have my turrets split into 3 and 3, so that I can do this that little bit faster. If 3 turrets is enough to one-shot it, it means I don't have to fire all 6, and therefore I can theoretically kill 2 targets in the time of 1 activation. Nice quick popping here going on. Occasionally we start to miss, although that's actually my drones now doing their thing. There we go, pop and gone. Lock onto the next one. Drones are still chewing through that scout there, no worries. Let's lock onto this one and just pop. Oh, not quite. The second turret killed it though. There we go, nice and easy, and you can see this guy orbiting and my drones just having none of it. They're not applying overly well because drone skills are pretty low on this character right now. Need to get those up in order for this to work, but I'm just going to kind of leave it here for a second. Yeah, you see at this point it's orbiting a little bit too fast for the artillery to function with, but there we go. All done, we can activate the gate and come into the next room. Oh, hang on, no. Nearly. Shift R to recall all my drones back to myself. Once they're back in the hold, off we go. Wouldn't have been an absolute train smash because I can just warp out, warp back into this point and really scoop them because they're right next to an acceleration gate here, for crying out loud. But still not an ideal situation by any stretch of the imagination to have to warp a fairly slow battlecruiser, well, fairly fast battlecruiser, but a fairly slow ship out, warp back in just to scoop the drones. Take that second to pause and double check. Cool. So when I'm doing this, I like to go up and down the list and just kind of look for the smaller ships, because those are the ones I ideally want to take care of whilst they're at range, because being at range means they're easier to hit because there's less transverse velocity. Like there, you can see that safeguard going down in one little pop. Also worth keeping an eye out for certain ships. Those Mauluses can be really annoying. I've got a 60-kilometer lock range on this thing. I've got the ability to comfortably hit targets and deal good damage at that range as well, unless these idiots come up to me and start sensor dampening. Oh yes, Serpentis rats and their sensor dampening. That's always fun, being forced to lose lock on a load of your targets because they're now outside of your lock range and they now take longer to come back online to target other things. So yeah, I tend to just kind of park here for a little bit and I'm just going to snipe off a load of the stuff that I would ideally like to see dead before I have to worry about the rest of it. And of course we've got a few cruisers around here as well. I think there's actually a couple of battle cruisers in this. Some of the wingmans and stuff like that. The wing leaders and the patrol leaders, I think, are Brutixes, if I recall this particular mission. But otherwise, we're just kind of going to sit here and, oh, I've taken a hit. I should probably have put the shield hardener on before now. Oh, well. Skipping ahead here just a little bit because there's, I kind of outranged a load of stuff. I should have started moving earlier. I then just kind of drift towards the acceleration gate. I know I can't activate it yet because there's still stuff alive, but ultimately whilst I'm drifting forward, I can start to pull out some of those things. And at this point, I'm just about to hit my first major reload as well. There we go. Charges are now going to be reloading into the first set of cannons. The second set are a little bit further behind. You might be wondering why those are so out of sync. It's because I've had some things that I've shot with the front cannons and they've taken 2 hits, whereas other stuff I've just been able to pop single shot alpha strike off the grid with the second set of artillery. So like here you can see that infantry's going down there, the Corella infantry. A little bit of a slow one because it's mainly the drones doing it. The cannons completely miss because it's a small target moving at a little bit of angle to me. But otherwise, we're slowly approaching the first acceleration gate here and just popping off each target one by one, taking careful consideration to get rid of those frigates first. And you'll see I've taken a little bit of damage on my shields at the bottom there. Not much at all. I don't have a shield booster, but you can see this is recharging quite comfortably, actually, even despite incoming damage. I'm now pretty much parked at this point here. I'm going to essentially bounce off that gate in a second. I'm only moving, 370 meters per second, somewhere around there. I will eventually just park up and screw taking a little bit of extra damage. Me moving in this vessel, it doesn't really help mitigate all that much when I'm up against cruisers, frigates and destroyers because they've got the tracking to not worry about it. Here we are, we're going to bump into the gate at this point, I think, and that's going to drop my movement speed all the way down. No, I'm just going to drift over it. Okay, I should probably consider slowing myself down and just parking here at this point. Just checking I can't activate it. Be amazed how many missions I've done where it turns out, oh no, actually you can just run to the next gate and off you go. But there we are. I'm just going to kill some stuff here and then we're going to activate and jump. Skipping ahead again, we are now in the second room of this, and I wanted to showcase this because I know, there we go, there's the sensor dampener. Now watch, you'll see I get that little notification, and all of the ships that are beyond 39 kilometers go bye-bye, because yay, sensor dampeners. And I can try and just like mass lock onto as many of those ships as I can, but they are all out of the 39 kilometers at this point in time. Check the name of the ship that is doing that to you, because you want to get rid of that bad boy as quickly as possible so that you don't keep having that really annoying situation. Getting hit with a sensor dampener, losing a load of your targets, having to wait for them to get closer to lock back onto them, it's just wasted time, and time is money, as the goblins say in World of Warcraft, so screw it. We want to take that guy out first. Fortunately, no problems at all, and if these guys want to slowly drift towards me, well, my artillery are happy to oblige against small targets flying in an essentially straight line straight towards me. Not a single problem shooting any of these cruisers. I'm quite happy drifting. And so at this point in the video, I should probably explain the Silent Rose story for anyone who is new to that. The rest of you, if you've heard this story before, then of course you can just watch me blap some Serpentis in the background here. Now, when I first started playing EVE Online, I was living on a boat in London, and I was living with a Scottish fellow called Paul, and he was teaching me how to play EVE Online. I was playing on a laptop using a little USB dongle to allow me to connect via 3G. Yeah, fun times. Those were, let me tell you. And I got into this situation where, I can't remember the name of the ship, it's the Omen upgrade, not the Omen Navy issue, the other one. I was flying certain ships, and every time I jumped this one particular gate into Nullsec, I was getting blapped by this one guy in this one Amarian cruiser. And I got sick and tired of losing all of my ships to this guy. Every time I jumped through the gate, every time without fail, he would either be there, or if I jumped through and maybe made it 1 or 2 systems in, he would be there as well. As such, over a period of about a month, I trained up the additional skills to get myself into a Hurricane. I then decided, right, I'm hoping that a month later, this guy is still there. I jump through that gate into Lowsec, the ship is there. Excellent. I lock on, I open fire, and all I hear is Paul from the cabin across the other side of the boat yell, "Ah!" F-word expletive. It had been him the entire time, and the argument is, yeah, he was teaching me EVE. But that was the Silent Rose. That was the first Silent Rose, and that hull never actually got destroyed. So when I came back to EVE Online last year, around April time, I sent that across from my old account. I then created a new account because I obviously wanted to use the Captain Benzie name, but that is the OG Silent Rose. Now that I have this up and running, I don't have those battlecruiser skills on my main account. He's mainly frigates and cruisers with some destroyer skills in there as well. Exploration for the most part. So I sent the Silent Rose over to my alt, which is now skilled into gas huffing and the Hurricane. That's what I'm running on this alt, and it just feels so good to finally be back flying this ship again. Happy, happy days, and hopefully this video has given you some ideas as well. It's worth pointing out that I didn't have the mobile tractor unit in the hold of the ship at this point. You see, I also don't have the salvager on this one. It was running this mission that kind of made me go, yeah, I should probably get myself an MTU salvager just to get a bit more that way, because I do enjoy salvaging. We're with Catskull just getting things set up, so getting a few more materials for the corporation is always going to be a pretty cool thing. But otherwise, folks, that's pretty much it. You can see we are right here now at the end of this encounter. I'm just trying to lock onto everything here. I think I just got my own drone in that as it flew past at the last second. No, I just managed to avoid that one. I'm just blapping through the last few targets here, so yeah, hopefully this has inspired you. If you like the look of the Hurricane, train into it, skill up into it, get yourself up to L3s. This thing can run L3s quite comfortably. There are certain DED sites, obviously, you can run as well. You can fit scanning on it and go looking through wormholes for certain things. A lot of cool stuff you can do in this ship and have fun with it. I love it. Hopefully you do too, and if you've enjoyed this video, spend a moment just to hit like on it. If you do want to go the extra mile to help support content like this, come join my Patreon. You'll get your name in the stars at the end of every one of my videos. I am trying to sort of write a weekly blog each week just to let you guys know what's going on in my life and how content is going, etc. Yeah, or come check out my Redbubble merchandise store. There is even a Silent Rose t-shirt there, so you can support this one ship in particular. Anyway, folks, thank you for watching, happy sailing, and see you in New Eden!